Hey guys, Mr. Ridgway here for our next lesson on a different cultural hearth. In this case, it's going to be the Mayans, the Measly Mayans. Go ahead, get your warm-up done. Then when you're done with that, you can carry on with me, and we'll kind of talk about what we're laying down today. So, first of all, we want to try to describe the development of the Mayan civilization. How do we get them? And then second, how can we analyze some archaeological data to do some good quality critical thinking? And we'll get to that in a little bit later when we do our activity Think Like an Archaeologist. So the first thing we're going to do is just take a moment and kind of take a step back, talk about, since this is our first lesson that is not in Europe or Asia, and talking about early civilizations, how people got there, all that good jazz. Okay? So go ahead, write down these essential questions, and then once you do that, you can carry on with me. Okay, so we're going to be talking, again, a lot about geography, and because this is a whole new place for us, and then also some big kind of civilization traits. So let's remind ourselves, okay, human beings did not use a land bridge to get to North America. That thesis is garbage. Okay, please do not, please do not ever say that human beings made it there. Instead, you should have written down, or how did human beings migrate? Just recall the Moana thesis was a thing, right? People get in boats, they either coast hop their way over, or they do some ocean crossing shenanigans with, hey, right? And again, human beings start in Africa, then spread out all from there. But again, this is kind of the idea. Now, with that, okay, this class, we get to actually talk about why the Moana thesis matters compared to the whole land bridge thesis, which then brings me to just, this first. Remember, the Neolithic evolution has happened by this point. Okay, so just like everywhere else around the world, human beings have relatively about 12,000 BCE, give or take a few thousand, have discovered farming. So we've gotten we've transitioned from food scavenging to food producing. We've got more people because more people staying in villages because their crops don't move, results in skiddly pooping. So we have even more folks, which then, we get complex governments because people don't get along. And then all of a sudden we got social class differences, and it's just a whole mess of specialized labor and, human goodness, right? We're exploding, we're growing. So again, just remember, farming is a big deal. All right. Now, there are three broad themes about all Amerindian / native peoples of the America that you need to know. And these are like relatively, I'd say, within the last 10 to 15 years in terms of paleoarchaeology. So what are they? Number one, okay, Amerindians developed societies much earlier than we assume. Okay, and this is because now that we know the land bridge thesis is garbage, that is going to result in people being in the Americas for a longer period of time. And that then leads into number two. If they've got more time, they can develop more complex societies. And in some cases, you're going to see that these societies are, if not equal to, very, very comparable to Europeans when Europeans will eventually show up. For example, Europeans never invented the suspension bridge. That was an Incan invention. So again, the technologies, different, right? But the whole point of this is that they're there earlier, so therefore they developed more complex societies. And then this is the third one. They manipulated their environments to suit their needs. There is a thesis out there, and this was coming out around about the 1970s, that kind of held this idea that native peoples of the Americas lived in this pristine Eden that was untouched by the corruption of Europeans, and that's also equally flawed because Native Americans were amazing terraformers and really did massively transform the landscape to suit their particular needs. Instead of it being like an untouched rainforest, think of it more like a cultivated garden that they're changing around. So what else do we need to know here? As it looks like my text is, kind of hiding there. So I'm going to go fix that. Well, number one, there we go. Fix that guy. Development of Mayan civilization. What do you need to know about the Mayans? Well, it's hard for us to even call them the Mayans, first of all, because of kind of their setup. Okay, so they're located on the Yucatan Peninsula, and I'll show you that here on a map here in a second. And in terms of time periods to kind of get your head wrapped around, we're about 300 BCE, give or take some BCE. And they were made up of numerous city-states that sometimes got along and sometimes didn't. And that means that they're not a unified civilization, so calling them the Mayans is a little bit of a misnomer, right? It's a name that we've given to them afterwards. So if you see here, okay, again, North America, this kind of peninsula jutting out into the Gulf of Mexico, this green area, all these little dots are different city-states, all right? And again, a city-state is a city that acts as its own state, right? Its own little nation. Now, so it kind of makes it difficult here to say that the Mayans weren't a thing, that I now have to talk about how the Mayans are a thing, and they had some, different kind of common cultural traits, and truth be told, they did. First of all, they practiced something called slash and burn agriculture. Please click that link and go check it out. It's really, really important. What they did is, well, first of all, speaking of terraforming, okay, terra meaning earth, forming meaning forming, they massively had to transform the landscape in order for them to farm. And it's really hard to farm in, if we go back here, this is mostly rainforest. So how are you going to farm there? You're going to slash down the big stuff that won't burn, and then once all the big trees and huge debris is out of the way, you burn the rest of it. And that results in some really fertile soil for a couple, 2-3 years, and then it just dies. And the reason why is, again, you have to have plants in there to constantly keep replenishing things like nitrogen in the soil, right? And so they'd have to move their farmlands every once in a while. They also had different social classes in Mayan culture. Nothing like unsurprising. Usually a male ruler on top, nobles, scribes, artists kind of below them, merchants, then farmers, and then who were by far the majority of people, and then slaves. The reason why farmers are still the majority of people at this time is that, again, most people are going to probably spend most of their time farming, but then you'd still have chances for specialized labor in some of these other areas, again, like scribes or merchants or things like that. Now, the Mayans also had a writing system, and you can see it there to the left. It's pictographs. It's kind of like playing Pictionary, which you don't know what that is. It's like playing, I don't know. Imagine TikTok on mute. Okay, and you kind of got the idea. We call it glyphs, and it's just pictures that people could interpret into a language. We can't read all of it, but we can read a lot of it, I would say. Also, the Mayans had a polytheistic religion. Again, polytheism, many gods, probably centered around a sun god, is a safe assumption there. But they're by far probably known for two big achievements, and that is number one, their calendars and astronomy, which we'll get to in a second, and then also their monumental architecture, these huge limestone temples that they construct, which we'll do a virtual tour of one here later. Also, a fun thing about the Mayans, we have no idea how their civilization ended. All of a sudden, they just abandoned their city-states. We don't know if it was civil war that eventually took its toll, if it was famine, climate change. There's been some archaeological records that say, no, it wasn't climate change, because actually they had more rain during those years. It's all over the place. So we have no clue. All right. Now, the Mayan calendar is awesome. Okay. You need to click on this little link right here, and you can actually see it work. And what it actually was 3 interlocking calendars. Then they work in these massive cycles. So you're actually seeing 3 circles here. You got one kind of, that's the edge of one, and that's actually a huge, gigantic ring. Then you got 2 other rings, and they would kind of move with each other. So they had 3 calendars. One was astronomical, meaning based on the stars. One was religious. Okay, and then like a religious calendar, such as like a church or another calendar that you might find, like, if you go to, again, particular temples and things like that. And then the last one, was for civil events, like political functions. So if you click right here, it shows you how the calendar moves. It's awesome. But the other thing I want to show you is this right here. And it's from the New York Times. And they put together a little interactive that's really neat. And you get to play around with the calendar, which is awesome. Now, be aware for this site, okay? I'm going to actually, here for just a second, tell it to ask, and I'm going to reload the page here. What's going to happen is when you first pop open this page, it's going to look like it's not working. What you need to do is right here in the very center, there's a little here button. You see that? You must download the latest version of Flash Player. You need to click that and then say allow. Okay, once you do that, you either need to refresh the page or the page will auto refresh, and then all of a sudden, voila, we get the Mayan calendar. Now, if you don't know what the Mayans are famous for with their calendars, it was the year 2012, and specifically the date December 20th. And here's why. Okay, so if you click down here and we jump to a date December 20th, 2012, if you can see here, we have like different little nodes of time, like groupings of time. And you can say we've got Baktuns, Katuns, Tuns, Uinals, Kins. I don't know if I'm even pronouncing those correctly. But if you click one more day right here, I go up by one, you can see they all zero out. And the reason why everybody lost their minds in 2012 was because they're like, oh my God, the Mayan calendar is ending. No, it's actually not. It wasn't ending at all. It was just going on to like the next tick in one of these cycles. And you can see right here, these cycles are 394.25 years long. So that's a Baktun, if you really want to know. Okay. Again, why was everybody losing their minds? I have no idea. We made a movie about it and it was terrible. If you don't know what that is, you can go watch it. It's out there. There you go. Yeah, December 20th, and we all lost our minds because it zeroed out and we moved to the next Baktun cycle when we thought the world was going to destroy itself. There you go. I don't know. Now, other than that, you're more than welcome to try to find your birthday on there. That's kind of something fun to do. Please complete the exit ticket for this lesson. So answer the following questions on the bottom of your notes. How did humans, Native Americans, most likely reach the Western Hemisphere? What are 3 broad themes to know about Native Americans? And then describe 5 traits of Mayan civilization using only 5 words. And I'd like you to do those on your notes, please. Once you do that, okay, I want to show you the beginnings of what's going to eventually become a really massive compare and contrast chart that we're going to do. So you need to click right here to get this early American civilization chart, and then I have a separate video you can click right here where you can do the Mayans part with me. Okay, but for now, I'm going to skip that because I explained that in that particular video. The last thing I have for you is something called Think Like an Archaeologist. I have a virtual tour on this button right here that you need to check out, and then after that, there's a reflection, and this reflection is just a really simple Microsoft form. Couple questions to answer. Okay. As you examine the temple grounds in Tikal, do you think these people are in the Neolithic time period or Paleolithic? Why? The rooms at the top of the temples were very small, but obviously elevated above the ground. What does this reveal about the social class that utilized the temples? What class were they? How many people were in that class? Their beliefs, etc., 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 etc. Okay. So once you do that, you are all done with today's lesson, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.